I'm joined, as ever, by my friend Richard Scott, the good doctor. Hello, sir.
Thanks. I was just saying, Andy, earlier, I'm very pleased to see you wearing another version of a Pure Media t-shirt. I'm sure you're trying to encourage people to join in and get some of themselves.
Well, I have got a blue one. My wife threatened me that I had to go to the wash. That's the Pure Men's Mag one, which we made in-house. First t-shirt we ever made in-house. So we've got a press. We got the graphic part was printed. We bought the t-shirt and we pressed it. And I wore it every day for about 7 or 8 days. And my wife said, okay, it doesn't stink, but you really need to be willing to wash it. So that's now gone sadly to the wash. So I'm in another one, which makes me very happy because it's Pure Media, the magazine, which is our other magazine.
Excellent. Excellent.
But I like my t-shirts. It makes me very happy. Now, we meet every week. This is our 71st chat. We were chatting about this a moment ago. Our 71st conversation on medical stuff, everything from things in the news, medicine, surgeries, milk. We've covered so much stuff in the last nearly 2.5 years.
Well, we have. I've got one for you tonight. And then, funny enough, just reading the Times newspaper from yesterday. Oh, there's a good topic. So good. I'm going to use it in the magazine and reflect on it in the magazine. So that's, I guess, what I'm here to do is to sort of keep my eyes and ears open and then apply a medical mind to what does this really mean? And particular from a Christian point of view, what does this really mean?
Because before we get into tonight's topic, I was thinking about some of the stuff that we've talked on, which might think, well, why are they talking about milk? And we looked at milk quite excessively for a whole session. We looked at breast milk and cow's milk and almond milk and anything with the word milk roughly around it. And it was genuinely fascinating because we touched on breastfeeding. That was part of what we did. But we touched on people with lactose intolerance and all sorts of stuff. And this is the thing. One little 4-letter word became a really, really interesting, very long conversation, which I liked a lot, about one simple white fluid.
Well, thank you. And of course, as Christians, we know where it comes from. God has designed us this way. Thank goodness that mammals are so named because of producing milk and how wonderful it is for their kids. Poor old birds and reptiles and fish don't have that facility, but we do. Praise God.
Well, not you and me, but yes, we. I know what you mean.
As a species.
Just be clear. Right, so I actually flagged this up with you last week because I was seeing some stuff in the news about smoking. In the last few days, we've seen, because in the UK, if you're not familiar with what's gone on, they're basically banning smoking with cigarettes, nicotine, and every year it goes 1 year more. So effectively, within 18 years or whatever it is going to be, nobody will be allowed to buy cigarettes because they won't be allowed to. And by the time they can start, they're not going to want to, I guess is the basic point. So that's been going on for some time. Good or bad, you may decide, hey, that's controlling. Where's the cotton wool? Make it go. However, we can understand a lot of that lung cancer, big problem. But the reason why I wanted to flag vaping up with you is because everyone says, switch to vaping. It's much better for you. And I remember thinking, I'm not sure that one is necessarily better than the other. And just because it might be less bad doesn't make it good. Which is why I said, right, can you go and research this? Because I don't smoke, never have. If I have severe asthma attack. So it's never been a problem for me to want to smoke. Vaping, on the other hand, is much more of a problem for all my family. If we walk through a cloud of vape, my throat actually closes up immediately. So I have to hold my breath and try and do my best. It causes far more problems immediately and seriously for me than cigarettes ever did. I used to go to pubs when I was younger and people smoked, which is why I thought, okay, let's separate some of the stuff that's out there with some of the good and the bad and the confusion. And that's where you step in, which is why I said to you, is vaping really better than smoking? Is it less bad than smoking, or is it just not? What's the truth?
Yeah, well, I'm very glad you did, because it's something that we're so familiar with. In fact, funny enough, I was walking through a housing estate local to me in Margate last week when something caught my eye, and there was a woman leaning over a balcony smoking a cigarette. And then she was dashing it out into a little container hanging off her balcony. And what got me was how rare that is, relatively speaking, nowadays, compared to how it was when we were kids. Except if you ever drive past, and this is probably true in other hospitals, QEQM, Queen Elizabeth Queen Mother Hospital in Margate, you will almost always see staff hanging outside the gates of the hospital. Staff, not patients, smoking. So that's where you can tend to see cigarettes, which is certainly an irony there. But you can barely walk anywhere these days without, being exposed to vaping. And and this is not surprising because we know that figures show that 7 out of 10 smokers want to stop, and we equally know it's one of the best things you can possibly do for your health. arguably the best. Smoking affects every single organ, including the heart, and a third of heart disease deaths are due to smoking or passive smoking. So when you were saying last week, well, how good or bad is vaping in relation to cigarettes? I knew something, but again, let's look it up, and that way I learn, and hopefully other people do too. So what does the latest science say? And here's the three questions before I look at the science that struck me immediately. Number one, is vaping actually safe or simply safer than smoking? Number two, are there risks to non-smokers like yourself from passive vaping, inhalation? And three, is vaping better or more successful in quitting smoking than other nicotine-based products? Those are just three questions. In fact, we're going to look at a whole lot more in a second, but it got me thinking. So I went online to look at some of the science, and Johns Hopkins University, one of the top universities in the States, last year produced a very helpful guide to vaping. So I thought, well, that's pretty up to date. And here are some of the points that came up, and I'm sure you'll pick me up on some of these later on. But number one, as we might have suspected, vaping is safer than smoking, but it's absolutely not harmless. When you think about it, it's quite logical because vapes or e-cigarettes are produced by heating nicotine, which is extracted from tobacco. Then you add some flavorings and other chemicals to create an aerosol, which you then inhale. Now, let me ask you, I had no idea about this. In a normal cigarette, so normal tobacco cigarette, roughly how many different chemicals are there? What do you reckon?
I thought, now this might be completely stupid, and you think, where on earth is he? But I remember we did this at school. The number in my head might be stupid, but I remembered 5,000.
That's very close. It's 7,000.
Oh, okay.
That's normal cigarettes, many of which are toxic, including metals. And whilst the e-cigarettes contain less chemicals, it is not zero. And of course, we don't fully know the effect of every single chemical. So you've got nicotine that's heated, you've got flavorings, you've got other chemicals. We don't quite know how many, but they're not harmless. Number two, the dangers of vaping. In 2020, the US, so this is just before the pandemic, they examined deaths and lung injuries. They found more than 2,000 definite lung injuries. So that's not that many within a US population, but these are the statistics then, at least 2,000 lung injuries and 68 deaths attributed to vaping. Now, one of the big fears is, well, what about cancer? If cigarettes cause lung cancer, which they do, and by the way, at least 40 other cancers are associated with smoking. What about vaping? It's too early to say because cancers take about a 10 to 30 year lead-in time from the substance being coming into the body and the effect. But given the ingredients, it's quite possible. Now we know, we'll look at asthma in the kids of vapors in just a second. But so smoking, we know, is more dangerous, but vaping is not fully safe. And there have been absolutely recorded lung injuries and even deaths from vaping. Number three, and this is where it gets really interesting. Of course, people are naughty. People will modify vapes from black market products, including THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, the active ingredient of cannabis. And if you do that, of course, if people smoke cannabis, strong cannabis that's available, it's really bad for the lungs, far worse than smoking. Well, if you put your THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, into your vape, wow, that's going to be a lot worse for you. And so the recommendation absolutely is don't buy your vapes online. If you're going to buy vapes, don't do it online. And don't modify them. And definitely no THC in your vapes. Number three. Number four. Of course, because vapes are extracted or rather developed from nicotine, which is addictive, as addictive in vapes as it is in cigarettes. So if you stop taking your vapes, you will get craving and withdrawal if you don't respond to the craving. You will find that the nicotine raises blood pressure, raises adrenaline, causes chronic lung disease and asthma, and especially dangerous in the presence of heart disease. So you've got the other chemicals, which may well be a danger. And of course, you've got the nicotine itself, which is dangerous, and it's addictive. And the addiction is really interesting. Did you know, and you might have done, but nicotine is as addictive as heroin or cocaine. I've known as a doctor that it's far harder to stop smoking than it is to stop drinking. And stopping drinking is hard enough. Stopping smoking is really hard. Well, there's the reason. It's as hard as heroin or cocaine. And it can be worse for vapes. Why? Because there's often more nicotine in some of these tobacco-based vapes. Not least, and this is again where people can be a bit naughty online, you can order extra strength cartridges, or, and this I certainly didn't know, you can increase the voltage in your vapes to get a greater hit. Isn't it amazing? See, you can add extra things in like THC, you can alter the voltage, you can order extra strength cartridges. All of these things, of course, will mitigate against vapes being safe. Well, next one. Does vaping lead to smoking? This is a big worry, that not only is vaping used to stop smoking, but does it lead to smoking in the young, the so-called gateway effect? And the answer is yes. In the US, at least 2 million youngsters have used vaping as their first nicotine-based product. So they're not using it to stop smoking, and the fear is it's a way in not only to smoking, but to other illicit drugs. And we might well be causing, this is the researcher who wrote this paper for John Hopkins, he said, we may well be causing the next smoking epidemic through kids getting addicted to e-cigarettes early in life. Wow. Okay, that may be alarmist, but he's making a point. 2 more points. Number 7, why is the new generation getting hooked on vapes? Well, the study has postulated 3 reasons. Number 1, kids think vaping is safer, and overall it is. It's also, interestingly, cheaper than cigarettes. And thirdly, they like the fact that it doesn't produce so much smoke, to, if you like, the sort of physical effect. So that's perhaps why people are getting stuck into vaping. It's a safe thing to do, except that we're showing that it's not a fully safe thing to do. Here's a really interesting thing. People think, well, it's a smoking cessation tool. It's a way to stop smoking. Do you know it's not licensed in England for that, and it's not licensed in the States for that? Why? Because nicotine replacement therapy, NRT, in the form of all the things that doctors can prescribe, patches, gum, inhalation, lozenges, nasal sprays, you can buy them in your chemist and we can prescribe them. These NRTs are better and licensed to stop smoking. So there you go. And the other thing is that NRT doesn't contain the dangerous chemicals found in vapes. So there's quite a lot of science behind why vaping is not harmless. It's not such a good idea. Yes, it's better than smoking, let's be fair. But it's not the best way to stop smoking. And it may well lead to people starting smoking. So, there we go. Glad you asked me to look it up, and that's what the science says. And yeah, I mean, we don't need to, go into the fact that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. We know that, we can harm our bodies in many ways, from overeating to smoking to too much drinking, illicit drugs, etc. But let's just not think of, oh, it's okay to vape. I'm not doing these other things. It's okay to vape. Well, is it?
Where do you begin?
You asked for it. It was your question.
No, I know that. The one that really strikes me the most terrifying is in America. Was it if I get this right, 2 million children started smoking as a result of starting to vape.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know the statistics. I had heard that it's a way in, a gateway effect, but that's terrible, isn't it? It's terrible.
It's one of those that leaves you a bit speechless and a little bit horrified.
Yeah. And funny how that the companies that manufacture vapes, they won't be proclaiming this loud and clear, will they?
No.
It's a shame, but yeah.
One of the things that genuinely terrifies me about vaping as a thing is especially the batteries and all that stuff, because when you enter an unlicensed thing, we're seeing with e-bikes, it's exactly the same technology, a bit more powerful and big, same technology. There's lots of fires happening because people modify them, increase the voltage. They buy cheap ones that are not made to any sort of high standard, and you have all these house fires that are going on all over the place, all over the time. Not making the news as much as they actually happen, by the way, but we can understand why. But it's the same basic technology as an e-bike. It's a battery that gets recharged, and if you don't maintain it, or it's made too cheaply, the parts are too cheap, and let's be honest, these businesses are not doing this out of the good of their heart. They want to make money. So the cheaper the part, the more the profit. So that one element, forget anything else, that one moment, the battery, the technology of it inside it, that one is concerning enough if it's not being built to a high standard And let's be frank, there's an awful lot of these around, and because it's electrical, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not legitimate.
Yes, and you mentioned, and I didn't make enough of that really, but when you walk through some vaping smoke, you're worse than walking through cigarette smoke, and certainly there does seem to be a considerable increase in asthma and other forms of lung disease, but particularly asthma in the children of vapors. So people who passively vaping smoke, if you like, that's again a way that it's not safe. It's affecting your kids.
There was, I don't know if you remember this going back a while, but the word safe is such a nondescript, dangerous word in the world, because there was a thing when they said, oh, cannabis, we're going to downgrade cannabis to a lower thing. So if you're not familiar with UK law, you've got kind of heroin, cocaine, and they put cannabis lower. So it's not as bad. Therefore, we're going to lower the penalty or the threshold of criminal responsibility and all that. And what happened? Oh, cannabis is legal now because they've made it less illegal. Well, now it's legal. No, still illegal, just not as illegal as it was before. Hence, the word safe is without lots of qualification, the word safe is such a disingenuous, dangerous word.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. you're beautifully adding to my little presentation. And I think that's actually very helpful when we chat these things through, because you don't know where it's going, I don't know where it's going. But something comes out of it that says, yes, let's just unpick this and unpack it a little bit more.
But you came with three things why, particularly in the US, I think, which is John Hopkins is a US hospital university, isn't it? And they were saying that children take it up because it's safer, it's cheaper, and there's less smoke. I would say, as a driver, I can see the people who are vaping in the cars because the inside of their car is almost fog-like because of the amount of vape that comes out. All I can think is, you can actually see more than a cigarette. You can see what's coming out of your body. Do you not think that is a bad idea? Because that stuff was in you a moment ago.
Yes. No, fair point. No, I haven't spotted that, but now you've mentioned it, I'm going to look for it.
I see these things. Joe says, how do you keep seeing this stuff? I don't know. I spot it. But it was the cheaper thing. That was the one that, for all the stuff, that's the one that really alarms me, because it's like, being careful how I say this. It's a bit like when you think of people who try to get people hooked on drugs. They give you it for free. Try some drugs. And it's like, oh, that's great. That. Oh, here's just a little bit of money and a bit more and a bit more. And that's how you get hooked. Somebody gets hooked then into becoming a drug dealer, because it's the only way of actually supplying their own habit is they have to deal drugs to get the money to get the drugs they want to have for themselves. And what terrifies me is this feels like, especially with the illegal side of this all, because there's a bunch of legal companies doing this, I'm sure, above board. But like anything else, was it recently? I think Amazon got caught out with all these safe products that weren't. Trading standards themselves got caught out buying products that were not actually licensed, because there's this whole area of illegitimate products, for want of a better phrase. And the cheaper bit is the one that terrifies me, because cigarettes, no one can argue cigarettes are good for you. they're not. But vapes are not good for you either. But because they are less dangerous, we think, well, they're better. But it's not.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, one of the tactics the government has used is to increase the price of cigarettes, which are now really expensive compared to how cheap they were, when we were much younger. And perhaps that's what they need to do with vapes: put the price up, make it more of a deterrent. It won't stop everybody, but it'll have an effect.
The addictive thing is the other one that really, I don't know, I genuinely got a chill when you said this. Am I correct in saying this? That smoking vapes, it's more addictive than cocaine?
No, as addictive as heroin or cocaine.
Sorry, okay. So it's as addictive. I mean, that one alone. Relative to smoking, just help us understand this. So smoking a vape is as addictive as taking cocaine or heroin. How addictive relatively is a normal standard nicotine cigarette?
Well, no, it's the nicotine within it. So you've got the nicotine within a vape. It's the same as nicotine within a cigarette. It's the nicotine that's as addictive as cocaine or heroin, and vapes contain nicotine. So yes, absolutely, and there's no question that people can get addicted to vaping, and they are, but they think it's okay. And I think what the science is saying is, no, it's not okay.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to touch on was the very first thing you said: modifications, more voltage, more hit, extra strong.
Yes, wow.
And then there's the cannabis one, which was just, that's so dangerous.
But I mean, why bother? Why bother modifying your vape, adding cannabis to it? Maybe it's to persuade other people that you're doing something that's not as bad as having a normal a normal spliff. I don't know, but it's just that's a strange thing to do. It's strike, like you're sort of giving yourself something on one hand and taking it away on the other. I don't quite understand it.
I know when we saw the vape thing coming out, I thought, well, okay, if this is actually going to be safer than smoking, I can understand it and make a good thing. If it's going to help people get off cigarettes, then it's a good thing. But like you say, it's not licensed like it would be for a doctor saying, okay, here's a prescription of, I don't know, codeine or something. The first thing that came to me. That's licensed. It's made in a laboratory. It's very carefully controlled, made, passed, all the rest of it. If you've got unlicensed medical kind of stuff, which is what people are using this for, they're using it one way or another to medicinally do something for themselves. That's actually quite scary as well, because there's no control on this. So who knows what the heck's in that stuff if you're buying it. And like you say, if you're buying it online, who's made it?
No, and that goes back to the discussion we've had about alternative medicines, and it needs to be regulated. But if you're dare I say, deliberately misbehaving, trying to bypass the system and doing stuff online, then it's Russian roulette, and it's your fault. So don't do it.
Yeah, I like to say, there's no point in going into looking after your body, because hey, that's a whole other topic for another day, perhaps. I also don't think we should go into is it right or wrong for the government to say you should buy smoking or not, cigarettes or not. That's a whole other conversation as well. I wanted to stick to the fact that vape cigarettes, are they safer? Are they not safer? And I guess, well, yeah,
they are still safer than smoking. But please don't go away with the idea that they're fully safe, because clearly they aren't.
No, thank you, Richard. That's the bit that I didn't know. And if you do vape, please don't come near me with them, because I'm not saying I like smoking, because I really don't. I'm an asthmatic and it gives me bad asthma attacks. But I can actually breathe if I'm around cigarette smoke. With a vape, I can't.
I'll have to listen out to other people saying that. I've not heard that before, but I can get it, and I'm going to listen out now. You're triggering my thought processes.
Oh, jolly good. I mean, it could be because you get, I think, I don't know. I genuinely feel like an idiot, but you get scented vapes as well, don't you? So that could be perfumes. 40% of the population are allergic to perfume, so that's probably not good either.
Sure.
Well, that was an interesting topic. It's one that's been bugging me for about 5 years. Oh, about how long they've been here. I suppose no yellow finger, that's good. You don't stink quite so much, that's good. But yes, less bad, but not safe.
I think that's the takeaway message.
Cool, Richard. Thank you. I do have a question before I forget, which came in earlier. Which I need to go here. Right, question for Dr. Scott. I was thinking the other day about a vasectomy, and every man who's listening has just crossed their legs and winced. I've never needed to consider it. I wondered, what are the moral ramifications? Wow, okay, this is a big one. In Genesis, it says, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. I know of really good people who've had a vasectomy, but are there any moral issues with a vasectomy? In my mind, it seems a bit unnatural, but I am not knowledgeable or experienced enough to make any statements on this subject. And go.
Well, that's a question I hadn't been asked before, and certainly at the time, to be fair, when God instructed people at the beginning of time to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, that was at the beginning of time, when populations were obviously very small. Now they're very large, and I think there is a moral aspect to keeping the population down. To be fair, we may have gone too far in the West at the moment, because at the moment the number of children per woman has fallen below the 2.1 that's needed to maintain our population. So I think we've gone a bit far. But overall, I think there is a very good case, certainly worldwide, for keeping the population down. Because if you look at poor countries like Africa, most people have got 5, 6, 7, 8 children, several of whom often die because of poverty and disease and other reasons. It would be far better to concentrate resources through contraception, through, if you like, population control. Then they can use their money more wisely. And also, of course, that must be linked with looking after their existing children far better and wealth. And it's a big subject. But I don't think there's any moral issues now to having a vasectomy. And I think actually one could argue that it's men being kind to women, rather than putting all the responsibility and all the sort of eggs in her basket. That's the wrong word for it. putting all the responsibility on the woman to take contraception, and it's an almost foolproof. Nothing's completely foolproof. The occasional vasectomy does reanastomose, does join up again, but that's rare if you do the operation properly. I think it's morally sound. There's no moral case against it.
When I started reading, I didn't realize what the question was, but that's quite deep, isn't it?
It's a very good one.
But we're not afraid of tackling stuff, because here's the thing: if we don't talk about stuff, somebody will. And if you haven't got some wisdom in you, and hopefully me prodding a little bit, we won't have sensible conversations on these things, and we really need to.
No, absolutely. And we haven't tackled contraception and populations and stuff that, maybe that's for another day, but that's a very interesting question, and certainly one I haven't thought of before. I do like the idea of a man thinking about these things, helping his missus out with a problem.
Yes. My advice: don't ask me about my experience, because that would not be good for you. It's very good for most people. Don't ask my advice.
Correct.
Is all I'm going to say. Richard, thank you. I really enjoyed that conversation, because it's relevant, it's poignant, it's of the moment, and I think that this is why I love these sessions. There is so much confusion in the world. There is so much shouting and so much information overload. It is so good and wise to take a step back and have a different look and think, okay, what's really going on with this subject? And that's what we do here on this, which I love. Dr. Richard Scott, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure to see you. We'll be back next week for more.
See you.
The very first edition of our brand new monthly magazine, By Men for Men, hits the streets from the 1st of May. Pure Men's Mag is go. We've pulled together the very best writers we could find, scouring the earth, looking high and low, which means we've done the hard work for you. All you have to do is grab yourself a subscription. We've got digital subscriptions available everywhere via our website, or a 6-month subscription of these high quality, non-digital, tactile interfacing devices. They don't crash, they don't need updates, the battery is always at 100%. And even better, a brand new one appears every single month. Just head yourself over to www.puremensmag.com and grab yourself a copy. These are by men, for men, and always AI free. Pure Men's Mag is a go.